well, welcome back to the Merck Method, where we explore mental wellness, growth, and the human experience. I want to just thank everybody for tuning into the podcast today. If you are the first time listeners, welcome. I appreciate you coming in and listening to this episode. And if you are one of my followers or continuous listeners, I appreciate you coming back. So today's episode is going to be the third installment of the grief series that I started. And we're going to talk a little bit more about growth through grief. Grief is not something that you ever get over, okay? And it's really not something you want to get over, because really that grief is that full circle back to your loved one and all the memories you had with them. So we're really not trying to get rid of it completely. And grief isn't a hurdle to jump or a mountain to climb or leave behind. It becomes part of us, right? It's never really going to go away. And I've had a lot of people ask me, when does grief stop? Well, it doesn't. And again, we don't want it to. But it's the remarkable thing, out of that pain that you have, out of those deepest cracks in your heart, something new can actually grow. That's what today's episode is about. It's not moving on grief, but moving forward with it. And really even finding ways that grief can bring meaning and depth and that growth into our lives after we lose someone. Because when you lost someone or something dear to you, life can feel broken. I really don't like using that word, but that's what it feels like. You may wonder if you ever can smile again without guilt, or if you feel joy that's actually genuine. And while that brokenness never fully disappears, what does happen is transformation. You learn to carry grief differently. You begin to realize that that presence of pain that you feel is a reminder of that depth of love you felt for that person that you lost. And that love can still guide you forward. When I talk to individuals daily about grief, I always tell them that I know it's hard for them to try to process these things, and even baby steps count. All the little wins count. As long as you are moving forward. If you fall forward, it's still progress. In the early days of loss, your survival is enough. Waking up, eating something, making it through the day. Those small acts, those small wins, those are your victories. But over time, that grief evolves. It's not going to leave you, but it softens and it starts to shift. Okay? There will come a point in your life when you feel called to begin living again to your new quote unquote normal. Not because you've forgotten who passed away, but because you've carried your loved one with you into that new season, that new purpose of your life. That shift that I'm talking about can really feel terrifying to people. It really can scare you because it's a new version of you you've never been. Some people feel that guilt when they laugh again, when they find themselves enjoying something, because they feel that if they're doing that and they're feeling enjoyment in it, that they're not grieving their loved one properly. But that joy doesn't mean betrayal to your loved one, okay? Living fully honors the one you lost. Think about it this way, okay? Would your loved one want your life to end the day theirs did? I'm going to guess the majority of the people listening would say no. That doesn't mean you're not going to grieve them, but they don't want you to be stuck in that spot. But remember, I tell this to everyone, it's not a race. You have to grieve on your terms and no one else's. It doesn't matter how fast or slow you go, it's at your own pace, and that might take some time. Psychologists talk about something called post-traumatic growth, okay? It's the idea that after devastating loss, some people find themselves more resilient, more compassionate, and more present in life than they were before. Happened to me. That grief that I'm talking about opens your eyes to what truly matters. Strips away the small worries, the distraction, and leaves them with clarity. Life is fragile. Your time is precious. And love is everything. Now, that doesn't mean the loss was worth it. No one would choose the pain. But it does mean that out of all of those ashes and all of that pain, something meaningful can emerge. Some people discover new passions. Some deepen their relationships with the ones they love. Some simply learn to live more intentionally. Growth doesn't erase grief, it grows alongside it. It is here for the ride with you. This next part is really where the Merck method originated from. One of the most powerful ways to move forward in your grief is by honoring the legacy of the person you lost. Doesn't have to mean grand gestures. It can be something as simple as cooking their favorite meal, carrying on a tradition, or speaking their name often. I tell a lot of people, your loved one dies twice. The first time when they leave physically, the second time when you stop using their names to other people. Some people start foundations with their loved one's legacy. Some people create scholarships or dedicate time to causes their loved one cared about. That's a great way of showing another side of your loved one. Others find quiet personal rituals that keep their memory alive. That's okay too. It doesn't have to be huge celebrations, but as long as you're speaking to them, they are still around. When you honor that legacy of your loved one, you carry them into the future with you. You allow their story to continue shaping the world around you, even if they're no longer physically here. It's exactly what's happening with Aaron. I'm keeping Aaron's memory alive by doing the Merck method. And with this and his legacy, I am taking that and trying to help as many people as I can. So, grief at its core is really that love that you have for your individual with nowhere to go. But one of the most beautiful ways to channel that love is through kindness. That is what the Merck method is all about. When you perform an act of kindness in memory of someone, it becomes a bridge. You transform your pain into something that makes the world better. Doesn't have to be big. Pay for someone's coffee. Volunteer an hour of your time. Volunteers are so important. Offer a smile to a stranger. Those small acts ripple outward. And in them, your grief becomes a source of light, not just for you, but for others. Watch when you do a nice act and watch those faces light up. Sometimes the best way to grow through grief is to give your love new direction. All right, let's pause here for a second because this part is crucial. You have permission to laugh again. You have permission to dream again, to love again. Grief may whisper to you that joy is a betrayal, but it isn't. You need to be happy again. We just need to figure out a way to get there. Joy and grief can live side by side, I promise. In fact, they belong together because you only grieve deeply when you've loved deeply. And that same love gives you permission to embrace life fully. Think about all those moments when you had a memory of your loved one who makes you smile instead of cry. That's growth. That's healing in action. Doesn't mean you stop missing them. You'll never stop missing them. But it means you've woven them into your heart in a way that lets both grief and joy coexist together. Every loss teaches us something. And I know a lot of times we don't want to learn anything new. Some people might say that grief taught them patience. I've heard people say that it gave them more empathy for struggles they once overlooked. Many people that I talk to have said it reshaped their priorities, reminding them to spend more time with the people who matter the most. So let me ask you, what has your grief taught you? Think about it for a minute. Sometimes writing it down or saying it out loud can help. Naming the lessons doesn't diminish the pain, but allows you to see the ways grief has shaped you into deeper, someone stronger, someone more compassionate. Share an example. I once worked with a woman who lost her father. Okay. For months, she was just paralyzed by the grief. A lot of anger. She was tired, really unable to imagine life moving forward. She had no idea she was stuck. But slowly, like baby steps, she began to notice like the little lessons her father left behind. He loved gardening. She said that he was always saying that nurturing a plant was a way to practice hope. One day she bought a plant and tended to it just like she used to. But then that act became more of a ritual. Over time, she said she filled her house with plants, and each one reminded her of his love and his lessons. She eventually started teaching others about gardening as a form of healing. She was using the loss that she had of her dad to teach others. Her father's legacy was living on, not in some grand, huge way, but to her it was, but more in a quiet, daily practicing of growing something new. Again, that's growth through grief. She would have never probably helped those individuals that way if she wouldn't have learned something from her dad's passing. It's important to remember that resilience doesn't mean you have to never break down again, but it means you keep standing back up. You're going to have those days when grief just smacks you in the face. It's not a straight line for healing. It's kind of more like a spiral or a wave. There's always waves of grief. But over time, those waves and that spiral gets wider, and you learn to carry the pain with the strength. Psychologists talk about continuing bonds. The idea is that we don't sever our connection with the person we've lost. Okay. Instead, we reshape it. Remember that. That bond changes form, but it doesn't disappear. You still are going to talk to them. I talk to my dad. I talk to Aaron all the time. I ask for advice. And usually I get it. You still carry their influence. You still feel their presence in your decisions and your life. That ongoing connection can be one of the most healing truths. You haven't lost everything. That love for them still remains constant. I know that one of the hardest parts of grief is realizing you're not the same person you once were. Loss rewrites you. The things that once felt important might not matter anymore. And the little details you used to overlook suddenly become precious. The shift can feel disorienting. You might not recognize yourself at first, and that's okay. You might be quieter. You might be more reflective. You might be more compassionate. Or maybe you just discovered anger, resilience, or determination you never thought you had. Remember, grief changes your identity, but it also gives you the chance to choose who you want to be moving forward. Grief does sharpen your perspective. Before loss, we take so many things for granted. The small hellos, the ordinary dinners we have with our loved ones, the phone calls that seem routine. After loss, those everyday moments are revealed as treasures. You wish you could hear your loved one's voice. Growth through grief often means carrying that new perspective forward. You might find yourself slowing down, being more present, or cherishing time in ways you've never done before. That awareness is painful. It comes with a price of loss, but it's also a gift. It's a reminder that life's most important moments are often the smallest ones. People often say you're so strong when someone is grieving, but the truth is no one feels strong in these moments. Strength isn't something we're born with. something we discover piece by piece when life leaves us no other choice. You might be surprised that grief and creativity actually are deeply connected. Some people turn to writing, some people do painting. I've heard other people do music, and actually, I've heard a lot of people do gardening when they can. Not because it erases the pain, that's not what we're trying to do, but it becomes something that gives the pain a voice. When your words fail, a lot of times your creativity is the one speaking. When that grief feels too heavy, create something. That creativity becomes your channel. It could become the way you honor your loved one while also rediscovering yourself. Here's the beautiful part of this. What begins as an outlet for pain often becomes a source of your joy, the joy you thought you lost. You might find yourself growing into new hobbies. Maybe figure out some new talents you didn't know you had. Even new callings and purpose you never would have explored otherwise. So that ripple effect that I was talking about before about compassion, that grief doesn't always change just how you see yourself, but it also changes how you see other people. Once you've known that deep loss, you begin to notice pain in people around you. You might offer comfort more easily. You might listen more deeply. Or you might just extend patience where you would have been quick to judge. That ripple effect of that compassion really matters. It was born out of that grief, but it becomes part of your growth. It means your loss is not just a wound, it's also that bridge. You begin to just connect with others in ways that you wouldn't have possible without that grief shaping you the way it is now. Just again, don't forget this. You are not the same person you were before your loss. And that's okay. Remember that. It's okay. In fact, that gift is your growth. You're becoming stronger. You're becoming wiser. You're becoming someone who carries that love forward in everything you do. That grief will always be a part of you, and so will that growth. And together, they guide you into a life that, while forever changed, is still beautiful. I want to leave you with this, okay? Grief is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of love, and love, when tended to, always grows. You can always find a purpose. Even with that ache in your chest, I promise you, you can still experience joy. I want you to give yourself permission to grow through your grief. Talk it into existence. Carry your loved one with you. Honor them in the way you live and let their memory shape you into someone even more compassionate and resilient. So, again, I just want to thank you all for coming and listening to this podcast episode today. I hope it resonates with you. And if it does, share it with somebody that you know might be struggling. And like always, as I leave you with this. Stay grounded, stay kind to yourself, and remember, strength begins with honesty. Until next time.